fantastical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
That is right. We are the Saturday Night Network presented by LateNighter.com. I am Andrew Haskell filling in for John tonight, and this is the hot take show for the Ramy Youssef episode that we just watched. So excited to be here with you guys on, I guess it should be Easter Eve, but it's pretty much Easter morning at this point. So so excited to be here. Excited to be filling in for John and excited to talk about this episode. So let's get into who's going to be talking about this episode. First, making his hot take show debut, one of my nemesis from our draft earlier this year, Thomas Sena. Thomas, how you doing?
Good. We have a rivalry that's going on that I didn't know about until we were on the draft together. And then I was just kind of thrown into this rivalry. So I'm happy to be here today, Haskell, with you, my nemesis. Happy baseball season. Cleveland Guardians are 3-0. I don't think they might not lose a game all season. So everything's on the up and up here.
Yeah, I didn't know we had a rivalry until it came out of my mouth at the draft, but it keeps things spicy. The Red Sox blew a lead right in the middle of SNL tonight, so that was great. But excited for you to be here tonight. Also here with us, I think the person, I don't know the Saturday Night Network stats, but I think the person I've done the most roundtables or hot take shows with at this point, Victoria Franso. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing great. I would like to say assalamu alaikum to everyone in celebration of Ramy Youssef hosting the show. And if I could have the floor for a moment, I'm very excited to talk about this episode. This episode was for the MENA community, and that stands for Middle Eastern North African community. It was the perfect reminder that representation is important, and to see sketches of normal MENA characters or actors that have nothing to do with war or the US government was such a relief. So kudos and congratulations to Ramy and SNL. If you're looking to keep that momentum going and the good vibes going, and you'd like to hire a MENA cast member, I'm here for hire. So it was a great night for me. I got really emotional. We can talk about some of the stuff that we saw throughout the night, but it was great. I was very happy with this episode. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes, and I would like Victoria to be a cast member when I finally host SNL as part of my pick for those who have never hosted SNL draft that we did a few years back. But yeah, that was definitely one of the themes for tonight. And one of the things that we're going to get into tonight is that representation and just seeing kind of a melting pot of a different cultures being brought together tonight. And Victoria, you kind of kicked things off with us with our first kind of headline for the night and first hot take for the night. Now, this is my show tonight, and I've never hosted a hot take show tonight, so I only have one rule for the two of you tonight. I want those takes to be hot, okay? So bring it tonight. Thomas, for your debut, I got to see it. What is your hot take or headline from tonight's show?
All right, my hot take for tonight's show is that out of all the episodes I've ever watched in my SNL viewing career, this was one of them. That's my hot take for tonight. This was, honestly, this is probably for me, this was like the very middle point of what an SNL episode is to me. Like the very average middle point. Like there was nothing great, nothing terrible. This is almost that, in baseball terms, like that Mendoza line for me of what an SNL episode is. It's just kind of washed over me with like, it's just very, very average, I would say, episode for me tonight.
That certainly was an episode. There was a host. There was a musical guest.
Yep.
They did some sketches. Some of them were live. Whoa. Some of them weren't live. I don't know if anybody caught that.
Listen, I didn't realize the two of you were going to be the kings of controversy here. All right? Relax.
All right, Victoria, step in. What is you gave us a headline.
Yeah.
Do you have a hot take for tonight?
My hot take is more MENA actors on the show. That's it. It was such a great night this is this is one of my favorite episodes of the season, and it's deeply personal. And so some things may have gone over some folks' head, and maybe some people may have not appreciated, but there are things I truly appreciated. Uh, I don't have many complaints about tonight. I'm on a high. I'm like shaking from like good anxiety. So, and I'm so happy to feel to be in a place where I'm truly comfortable for the very first time in my life to talk about my culture and my heritage, and having that kind of, having someone who represents me, not in every way, but in a lot of ways on TV. And I'm a big fan of Ramy before tonight. I watched the show Ramy, and I was featured in his HBO stand-up special as an audience member. So this is a good night for me. That's all. That's my hot take. I'm just having fun.
We're excited for you for that. And we'll get into it in just a minute because we know you're so excited to talk about it. I only have one hot take tonight, and I really think that it was that they finally did something a little bit different tonight. And instead of viewing as though they have to get everybody into every sketch, it felt like tonight's episode really took a few people and gave them a chance to shine. Maybe a few different people than we've been seeing. Maybe some of the people who've been really highlighted throughout this season took a little bit of a back seat. But I feel like one of the themes of this season has been everybody getting into everything. And that wasn't the case tonight. And we'll talk about some of the reasons why, how that maybe impacted the episode as we go on. But let's do it. Let's get into this episode. We start off with a cold open. It is the night before Easter, which has become a bit of a tradition that we get a Trump Easter cold open. It's pretty much just a tradition at this point that we get Trump cold opens, but it is kind of an Easter thing that we've seen these Trump cold opens. It is for Trump Bibles this week, and it's something that Trump has been pushing. Trump comes out, tells us why we should buy his Bible. We get a little bit of Trump's version of the Bible and where he would play into that. My first question for the panel, Victoria, when that tomb opens up and we get the light shining, was there any doubt in your mind that we wouldn't see Trump? Is there anybody else on the planet that you thought we would see as a character right there outside of Trump?
No. That's my hot take of tonight. Yeah, it was a great piece on how the man thinks of himself. I don't know if anyone else saw that weird ad Trump put out. It was like blah 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 blah. So God made Trump. Blah 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 blah. So it was very, it was on the nose with that guy. And every Christian needs a Bible with the Constitution in it, just to know our roots as Christians. So the Constitution is the foundation of the Bible. Fun fact.
Outside of that, did the cold open work for you or no?
It was if it was gone, I wouldn't be sad. If it's there, I'm not sad. It was okay. That's
Thomas, how about you? What's your thoughts on tonight's cold open?
Yeah, Victoria's hand gesture, like that kind of said it all. It meandered a little bit for me, the cold open did, but as far as cold opens go, like it wasn't terrible. Like it could have been worse. It wasn't like like the Joe Rogan one, the Sesame Street one from a few years ago. But it did meander a little bit. I thought it was just okay. Is it just me, or is JJ's Trump impression getting more gravelly? Like something seems, I don't know, a lot different about it from like maybe when 2 years ago or something when he debuted the impression, but it seems a little weird, like something happened with JJ's voice, that it's just like the impression's kind of hurting his vocal cords or something. The impression felt a little bit off, but I have low expectations for cold open, so this was just like fine, I guess, to start the show.
Yeah, I do. I think he's been trying some new stuff with that impression too, and I think we saw it tonight. Different inflections and stuff. Mm-hmm. I would assume, not that the specific episodes don't matter week to week, but whenever we see political stuff this close to an election, I do think everybody looks at it like they're getting ready for the election. They're trying things out for the election. I think the biggest issue I have with this cold open, and I think it's the thing I've talked about the most every time I've showed up on this podcast is, Thomas, would there be anything different about this sketch if they just played us the audio? If they put just a graphic on the screen and just played the audio, would we have lost really anything of that sketch?
No, that's one of my big pet peeves. It's just like ripped from the head, like verbatim of what these political figures are saying. And I love when they go away from that. And that's why it was like maybe a small breath of fresh air when like he broke the fourth wall and told the cast members, okay, you're done. You don't have any more lines in this sketch. Like I kind of like when that happens. But you're right, Haskell. Like with a lot of these cold opens, probably for the last 8+ years, that's been my main gripe is just verbatim. Like write something new, have a different take. But this, you're right. This one was just kind of cookie cutter, ripped from the headlines.
In fairness, though, things that are happening in the headlines are so ridiculous. How are you going to rewrite it? How are you going to rewrite it?
I don't know. You got to find a way. You got to anti-comedy. You got to do something because just doing verbatim stuff it feels a little lazy. I don't know.
What would you have done instead? Well, no, I
I
won't.
don't know. I have like
I
10
won't put you on
seconds
the
to
spot.
come up with something.
I won't
So
put you on the spot. I'm kidding.
I just think my major issue is at one point I just looked and I was like, he's holding the Bible, and I just thought like, wow, he has been holding that Bible up and staring at us for like 40 consecutive seconds. I was so excited when he put the Bible down and brought up the toaster, just because it was different. And I think that was my main issue. I thought it was an Alec Baldwin issue because Alec Baldwin used to just show up and monologue at the camera, and I used to think, well, you can't get too complicated with the blocking. He's not there for rehearsals as much as everybody else. But it just seems to be an issue that's continued, and I don't know if it's something that allows them to rewrite the cold open or something like that. But it's just monologuing, and I don't want to monologue right into a monologue, and that's my transition. Let's get into this monologue,
well,
right?
Victoria, sorry, Haskell, to take from a joke that Jost said in an update, maybe put Trump as like a door-to-door Bible salesman. So maybe he like knocks on somebody's door and tries to sell them his Bible like at the door. I don't know. That's something that I just kind of came up with on the spot. But
what I was thinking too, when Jost made that joke, I thought of a sketch of, "Hi, would you like to hear about our Lord and Savior me?" And that would have been a good bit.
I do think that happens occasionally too. Sometimes we see something in the cold open, and just a one-off joke on Weekend Update is actually a better hook for that moment. And for whatever reason, they don't expand on that and they just leave it for the joke for Update. But yeah, it's kind of a color by number cold open. And Thomas, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, it's an episode of SNL. Like, of all the Trump cold opens that I've seen, that was one of them.
Exactly.
But I do think things pick up a little bit. We do get Ramy coming out for his monologue, and he does use mostly, he peppers some other stuff in there, but he uses mostly materials from his HBO special, More Feelings, which I think, at first, I just watched the special the other day to get ready for this episode. So it hit me really quickly, like, oh, he's doing that material. I didn't know how I would feel about it. I'm not used to seeing a ton of material from a stand-up kind of that I've already seen when they come on SNL. So I was like, how is this going to work? I thought it worked really well. Thomas, had you seen his special before? And how did that get, whether yes or no, how that impact your monologue or his monologue for you?
Yeah, I hadn't seen any of his special. The only thing I'd ever seen him in is Poor Things. That was the only thing I'd ever seen him in. I was refreshed when he got announced. I was refreshed to kind of find out that he was a stand-up and he had roots in actually performing comedy and everything. So that was like going into this episode. That gave me a lot of confidence in him as a host. But I had not seen his stand-up. I'm glad I didn't, because this is really cool. I think it hit me a lot better having not seen it, because I really enjoyed, and probably Victoria could speak more on this, but I enjoyed his perspective. I enjoyed a lot of his references. I like having hosts and people with a platform on SNL with different points of view and who have different backgrounds and everything. So I really enjoyed that. I loved his calm delivery, and just basically the monologue just put me at ease and made me confident that we had a good host on our hands.
Yeah. Victoria, on the other side, you talked about how big of a fan that you are. So, being more familiar with him, how did the monologue hit?
So I actually saw him while he was touring, and I think he was testing material for his special. And it was when I was watching monologue, I was like, "Oh, I've heard that before." And not in a bad way. I just truly genuinely enjoy his jokes, and I don't think there's anything wrong with, doing material again. Comics do it for years. I know comics who've held on to material that they were doing since pre-pandemic. If it's funny, it's funny, and it worked. Again, love the POV. Um, had some good jokes. I never thought about the guitarist in the background until Shane Gillis hosted and everyone was showing her, and I started looking at her and I was like, "Girl, let's connect here." And she was enjoying it. So I thought it went pretty well based on that alone. But no, it was looked comfortable up there, which was great too. I think, and I'll probably repeat myself a few times during the night, but I think he would have made a great cast member. I think he played really well. He really owned that stage. He looked and presented that he was comfortable. And, he did some great jokes and presented a different POV that I was glad that other people would hear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that makes his stand up popular, and one of the reasons that he's kind of reached this point that he's at is I feel like he gives an alternative look at certain things, but you don't feel like he's doing it from a place of like trying to be a contrarian. Like he just
Mhm.
genuinely has a different perspective on things than if you were just typically getting like, well, this is a comic who's more on the right, or this is a comic who's more on the left. He has that different perspective. One of the other things that I noticed about his monologue compared to maybe other times we have stand-ups on is it was a pretty brisk monologue for a stand-up compared to, I mean, obviously we have the numbers going back to some of the Chappelle monologues and some of the other ones that we've seen. Almost all of the longest monologues of all time belong to stand-up comedians just doing their stand-up. And this one was a little bit more brisk. Thomas, how did you like that compared to maybe a longer stand-up monologue?
Yeah, I like a more brisk, like at the most to me, if you're, I'll give you a little more leeway if you're a stand up and you're hosting, but like a tight 10, I think at the most for me. So I think this had good pacing. I think it was a nice length. I think I prefer that.
Yeah, definitely. I think he got a big laugh towards the end, and I was really hoping, like, oh, I hope he wraps it up here.
Right.
I think we've seen from other stand-ups, they get that big laugh, and then they do like another minute and a half,
Yeah.
and then they kind of just stumble on to introducing the music, or previewing the musical guest in the episode, and you're like, dude, if you just shaved a little bit off, and they're always cutting from sketches that we could have used those minutes somewhere else,
Mhm.
but.
Yeah.
Victoria, anything else to add on this monologue that you've seen the material before, but anything else to add on that?
No, I mean, I agree with you. We're taught in comedy that when you get that big laugh to like cut it, like that, leave it, leave them wanting more. And but I think he did a good job. He didn't linger too long after. So
Nah, George Costanza, right? You get the big laugh. I am out of here. I'll see you later. But we are not out of here. We are just getting started. We're getting into the first kind of live sketch, the sketch after the monologue, one of the big ones every week. This week we get couple goals. So we get Ego and Ramy playing, or we get a game show after the first sketch, after the monologue, a game show. Thomas, I don't think they've ever done this before.
No.
We get couple goals, sort of a couple game show with JAJ as the host, Bob DeBilda, and we get Ego and Ramy playing a couple who Ramy seems very nervous about the death of his wife that has not happened, and seems to be accidental, being pinned on him through all of his answers. And on the other side, we just get Heidi and Mikey Day as just a couple that does not get the right answers. So you get these the two sides of it, you have the one couple who is having this really existential crisis, and on the other side, you have just this couple that can't really get it right, and we get the build from there. Thomas, what'd you think of this sketch?
We laugh because it's like another game show sketch, especially right after the monologue. But this actually might have been the one that I liked the most all night. So I thought that there was pretty good escalation, and that's one of the big things that I have. One of the gripes I have a lot of times about the writing is just like there's no escalation. It kind of just stays in first or second gear. This one I actually think had pretty decent escalation, especially like with the twist of Ego almost inadvertently building off of the narrative that Ramy's character had set. So he like kind of makes the first two jokes, and then Ego, her character, kind of builds on that. So I like that. I like that kind of change of pace. The couple, Heidi and Mikey, they were weird, but not so weird that it almost conflicted with Ramy and Ego's character. It was almost like they were weird, but then you forgot about them once the other couple was on screens, which we kind of have, I think, tonight a little bit of a problem with kind of weird things in one sketch conflicting with one another. Like you don't know what's the game. In this sketch, we knew what the game was, and I think they handled Heidi and Mikey's other couple really nicely. So I actually really did like this guy. I thought it was a good start to the night.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes weird that sometimes it feels like a waste of time. We have to develop the game, but sometimes you go through the rhythm where you're like, okay, we know the other couple is just going to get it right because they have to be the straight man to what's going on with Ego and Ramy. Tonight, I feel like they took a little bit of a risk by allowing, kind of the straight couple, the straight man of the sketch, to also get some laughs and not do it right. Victoria, how'd you feel about kind of the couples that they put together?
I just about agree with everything that Thomas said. It was a smooth escalation without being overly ridiculous too. Sometimes on these game shows, they tend to add just a weird element that I don't think needs to be there to punch it up or heighten it. But I think the way it was kind of smoothly done and, giving us kind of that ramp up to, the weird stuff that Ramy and I think most husbands think of when they think of their wives and their best friends. But that's a joke. That's a joke. I know. I think both of you are married. But no, I think it was nicely done. And yeah, I agree with Thomas, especially about the other couple having their weird thing, but not so much that it's distracting or taking from Ramy and Ego as a couple. So I think that was a nice, pieced together really well.
Yeah, and this sketch also had that, classic SNL escalation of like a written joke getting longer and longer, or something that's supposed to be short getting longer and longer, which I thought was really good. I think another theme from this season, though, is there's been a few lines that I think people have kind of jumped out and been like, wow, SNL can say that, or they feel comfortable saying that, or they got that through the censor. I think one line tonight that got me was right at the end of his kind of long story about what would happen is he says that she mounts me again.
Right.
And I was like, man, SNL is taking some chances with the censors this year. Victoria, I don't know.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't quite know what that meant. So that didn't stand out to me.
That's
and
adorable.
I won't ask you to explain it. I just
we'll
kind of went like push him against the wall and kiss him. But
Yes. That's
leave it at that.
That's exactly what that meant.
oh, no. Okay.
We'll leave the explanation for the off-air show.
Okay.
And we'll move forward. Now, Thomas, we talked about this being a color by numbers episode of SNL. I do think we got a bit, not a huge curveball, a bit of a curveball, though. Next, we get the Please Don't Destroy boys kind of early on. They get the first pre-tape. They're early on in the night. We end up with a night out with Travis where the Please Don't Destroy Destroy Boys. They smoke a little too much of the well, Victoria, cover your ears, of the marijuana, and they are having a bit of a freak out. Well, Ramy does not smoke, but he's having a freak out of his own because he wore shorts out to the club and brought his wheelie backpack. Victoria, what'd you think of the Please Don't Destroy pre-tape tonight?
Okay, it was halal. That's what I'll say. It was a weird representation is important, but I'm a very like I'm completely sober. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do anything. And so that is me when I go out with friends. I'm the nerd. I'm like, oh, I wear sneakers out with friends and I don't drink or participate. So that was especially funny for me, but I think it was I think also cool to have Travis Scott in there. I don't know the last time we had both the host and the musical guest in a PDD video, unless someone here remembers. And I also don't remember the last time we had PDD. When was the last time they gave us a video?
Yeah, they have been a little intermittent, I think, in the second half of this season. Who, we'd love to get an explanation why.
Yeah.
We will see. I'm sure
We demand answers. No, I'm kidding.
we demand answers, and we will get answers. Probably not, but I agree with you, Victoria. I'm a fish out of water. I don't, I abstain from most of that stuff. I'm also a New England guy who puts on shorts when we get above 40 degrees. So I see nothing wrong with wearing shorts to the club. Thomas, how'd you feel?
Yeah, we're 3 for 3 with lamos here. I haven't done any of that since I was in my 20s. So I would react exactly like the PDD boys reacted to that. But I thought this was kind of an average PDD. I liked them. I know there's been discussion on the SNN saying, oh, you should put PDD outside of the office, or I don't really. I like them in the office. Because I think the office, I mean, if it's you who's brought it up, Haskell, but they can turn that office into anything that they want too. That's almost like a magical office. They don't need to go party with Travis Scott and do all of that. And I miss them in the office. I miss them having these quick cuts, these clever things to say. And there were some clever lines here. But I thought it was just kind of okay. And maybe part of that's because I found something out about myself tonight that I do not like Travis Scott. So maybe Travis Scott being that aesthetic being this PDD didn't work for me, but I thought it was just okay. As far as PDD goes, there's much better ones, I think. So I was fine with it, but it's just it's forgettable to me, I think.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Victoria,
No,
you go.
I was gonna say there's never been. Oh, let me be. I don't. Okay, so someone said in the chat that Sydney Sweeney was the last time. I admittedly did not watch that episode. I'm so sorry. But what's it called? I've never watched a PDD video that I didn't like. Some are some, of course, are going to be better than others, and I have a few favorites. But yeah, I just
that's not bad. There's no PDD video. To me, I've never seen a terrible or a bad one.
Yeah,
but
they're my favorite nepo babies. Plus Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they have a low strikeout rate. I think
Yes.
Victoria, what you say when there's no video that you dislike, I think a lot of fans have that same opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, going back to what you said, I totally agree. I like them in the office. And I've always called it their little sandbox. I think it's more interesting to see what they can turn that office into versus putting them out in the world. I do have a hot take question for you guys, though. And either you can feel free to jump in. I know, Victoria, you said you were excited to see Travis Scott in this. Thomas, you said you weren't into Travis Scott.
I did not say that.
I don't know if you were excited, but you said it was interesting to see both the musical guest and the... sorry. No, but here's my question to you, and it's a two-part question, is A, do the Please Don't Destroy Boys need to be the musical sketch guys of the current cast? And B, does everything need to be a musical sketch? Do you think this sketch would have worked if it was just them reacting to the same circumstances, but not being a music video? And I'll open it up to either one of you that wants to jump in.
Yeah, I think it would have been better if it was just them smoking weed with Travis Scott without the music, and we could see their reactions and like that type of editing, that PDD editing. I think it would have been better for me, or if Travis Scott comes into the office and he's like, hey, he wants to hotbox the office. See, is that still a term, hotboxing? I think that was in like when
Is
I was in
that
my
when
20s.
you're smoking
But
in closed
yeah,
spaces and there's no
yes.
windows? Okay.
Yeah. So maybe Travis Scott
Victoria,
couldn't.
1 for 2 tonight
Good
on
job,
Sherman.
Victoria. You're not like the perfect angel. Yeah, so I think if Travis Scott would have said, "Hey, let's hotbox this office," and then we could have gotten that without like the music video stuff. I definitely Haskell. That's a good call right there.
I think either or could have worked. Because they had Travis Scott, I truly do not mind that they did a music video version of this. I love the part in the limo. I loved I love the visuals of them in, just doing that. I think if Travis Scott was not in the scene, then it would have also been a funny video if they were at the club high and trying to figure it out without having to sing. But I think if they're adding him into that, him being Travis Scott, that yeah, I think it's fitting that they did like a fun, parody of a song.
Well, I just
Yeah.
kind of realized that part of why this didn't work for me is because they were rapping about their anxiety, but I don't think I felt that anxiety from them. And I think
Mm.
it's because it was done in a music video way. If it was done in their office with like I said, that editing and just them talking about it, I think I would have felt their anxiety a little bit more and maybe related a little bit more to it. But I think the music video format kind of like kind of squashed the anxiety bit just a little bit for me.
If I was gonna say this, if they only I have like this is not the first time I've heard that people want them in the office. I feel like they're darned if they do, they're darned if they don't. And if they kept all of them in the office, people be like, oh, we wish we would see them outside the office. Or maybe people do say that, but I see a lot more of, oh, they need to stay in their little room.
Well, the correct answer is what Haskell and I want.
Yeah,
That's
always.
that's fair. That's fair.
Always.
That's fair.
Well, what I want is to move on to this next sketch because I thought it was definitely it was both something new for SNL, but also it kind of felt like a callback to past eras of the show. So we move on to the Immigrant Dad Talk Show. We got Marcelo, we got Ramy as two dads from different cultures who can agree on one thing for their talk show. They're not huge fans of their sons. And then we end up getting Keenan as sort of their sidekick, who has a very young son and a very old daughter. And then we get Mikey Day coming in as a dad who is best friends with his son, and Andrew Haskell showing up as his parkour son. So, Victoria, I'm going to go to you. You talked a lot about, feeling represented, seeing different cultures in this episode. I thoroughly enjoyed that these were two cultures that I am not a part of, but the message is so clear. And that's one of my favorite things about comedy is when different cultures can all point and go, nah, we get that. So what were your thoughts on this sketch?
So this is one of those examples I was talking about, just to see, that Ramy's character could have easily been my uncle. And that was really big for me. I've loved those. Oh, I forgot what the sketch was called, but with Marcelo Hernandez and Pedro Pascal as his mom, those resonated with me, even though I'm not part of that culture. But to have, I'm not going to get emotional, but to have something that was part of my like Middle Eastern culture actually on the screen that had nothing to do with a US soldier, the president of the United States, or a leader of a terrorist organization was thrilling for me. This is my favorite sketch of the night. And I think it's clear as to why that is. So it was, yeah, I love the juxtaposition. It for me was even more tickling and funny because one of my really good friends is Latina and loves Marcelo Hernandez. And we actually, funny enough, met Marcelo Hernandez together. And she said, he's kind of spot on with some of the, I guess I'm going to call them like inside jokes within our own respective communities. And yeah, this one was for us. And if you didn't understand it or didn't get it, I'm sorry, but I fully enjoyed it. It was really fun. And the bit about he has sex with his son. Like there's that stupid exaggeration. It's just how our parents would probably speak, right? Our aunts and uncles. So it was creme de la creme for me.
Victoria's on record. If you do not get it, she feels bad for you. Thomas, is she going to feel bad for you or no?
No, I got it. I mean, I understood what like kind of the archetype of these characters. Of course, I'm Latino, and so it's nice to, like, I enjoy the representation. I think Victoria, that's why I really like enjoyed the Bad Bunny episode too. And some
Yeah.
people in our community didn't quite like that episode as much as I did. But I think that was one of the reasons that I enjoyed the Bad Bunny episode. So, with this sketch, I understood Marcelo's character. He could, like you said, he could be one of my uncles. Honestly, I think the sketch itself, though, like it was very much performance. It relied a lot on the caricatures, and to me, it like the actual what was happening in the sketch kind of stayed in second gear. Like it didn't like to me. There was like really not much escalation. Even when Mikey and Andrew came on screen, they were maybe a little too weird. I wish there would have been more of a straight person to like offset what these dads were saying. Maybe one of their kids could have been somebody that they interviewed or something like that. I just think it needed to be a little more grounded in something. But I did appreciate the representation. The caricatures were really good. Marcelo's caricature, again, like that could be somebody in my family. So I don't argue any of that, but it just kind of like didn't get going for me.
I think I was distracted by, I'll be honest, I did not pay attention to any of that. I was just so stinking excited that, like, just to have that character again. I was very distracted. I was like, oh my God, he's saying habibi. And the way he's talking about his son is just so funny, and I was too distracted by that part. Had we, to really be like, oh, we should have had a straight character or whatever it is, but
That's
that's
fair.
all.
Yeah.
Some sketches are vibes and some sketches are technical.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
this was all
totally.
this was all vibes for me. Sorry. Not sorry.
I'm going to give this sketch extra points, though, for just being two guys sitting outside and calling it the talk show, though. They didn't be like, oh, we got to put them in a studio or something. I thought just putting them outside was really good. But yeah, overall, just really good representation. And again, like I said before, when you can show representation, but also just show that human spirit, the thing that everybody can get across cultures, I think you got a pretty good sketch. Moving on to the next sketch, we have our basketball speech. Ramy plays a basketball captain at halftime who has to give a speech to rally the troops, not because they are losing, but because they are all trying to get over their coach, played by Keenan, sending the group chat pictures that were meant for his wife, and it escalates to pictures and videos, and it just keeps going. He's a guy who likes to be a cat, I guess is the best way to put it. Thomas, you're a sports guy.
Mhm.
Does this sound like any sports story that you have ever heard?
Maybe. Honestly, Rex Ryan from the Jets, I think stuff came out
Ooh,
about
good
his
one.
proclivities. So, yeah, so go look that up, Victoria. Well, maybe not. You're kind of a innocent angel, Victoria. Don't go look up Rex Ryan. But yeah, so this sketch, I thought it was a pretty decent sketch. Actually, it kind of had me laughing. There were like the beats. Had a lot of momentum. This sketch did, I think. And when you thought that we were just getting the same jokes, and I think it was perfect timing when they showed Devin. When they said, and he's not speaking, and that whole little subplot. So I think it was like they really did a good job of adding on to the absurdity that was already happening. So I did enjoy this sketch. I thought it was a pretty decent little sketch. Somebody said, Ken said Devin was the MVP here, and I agree. I think Devin did a lot of great stuff without having to say a word. This sketch kept me entertained the whole time, so I'll give this sketch like positive reviews. Like I thought it was pretty well done.
Yeah, this was my favorite sketch of the night, and I just think it's one of those where you can really see that they understand the beats, like you said. Like I thought there was a couple of really good reveals in there, both when they go to Devon and then later when you realize that there's a state issued social worker been standing in the room. I thought that was really good. But I agree with everybody saying that it's, without saying a word, Devon is kind of the star of this sketch, and you don't see that very often. If you're going to see somebody become the MVP by just reacting, it's usually not a newer cast member. It's the guy who was playing Devon's dad in this sketch, Keenan. But Victoria, overall, what'd you think of the sketch?
I thought it was really funny. I loved all the various surprises too. Like you said, with the social worker, the delivery of litter. Is that what it is? Litter,
Yeah, it was kitty litter.
kitty litter. Uh, and agreed on Devin as a performer, and I'm going to call myself a writer as well. That to me was re-emphasize the importance of you don't always have to go berserk on stage or in a sketch or whatever it is to make an impact, to make a punch. I think Dismukes does a really good job of that, because Dismukes will remember him in a sketch, but he'll only have said one line. But I think this was really a great moment for Devin, in that shows his skills. He didn't have to say a darn thing for us to laugh and truly enjoy him in this. So kudos to Devin.
Yeah, super fun sketch. And then we move on to what I think is the most creative sketch of the night. And we move on to Ozempic for Ramadan. And we touch upon it being Ramadan. And it just feels like this whole Ozempic thing won't go away. It's late night fodder. You heard them talking about it through award season. It felt like every monologue at award season's talking about Ozempic. It just feels like for the last at least few months, like celebrity use of Ozempic for weight loss has been like on the forefront. It's been something that people are joking about, and it also seems like everybody is sort of understanding the joke. I don't specifically remember when it all started, but it's clearly been something that's been in the news. And I think to tie it to something like Ramadan was super, super creative and clever. Victoria, what did you think?
This is a really good pre-tape. I don't really have any critiques. I don't really have any notes here, except, one, I think it was the timing of this is incredibly important. And the fact that we have Ramy hosting during Ramadan, which, now that I'm thinking about it, what a week for him, because they have to fast. And, kudos to Ramy for making it through an SNL week during fasting. So that's no easy feat. But I loved seeing Ego in a hijab. So I'm not Muslim myself, but I call myself Muslim adjacent because my parents are from the Middle East, and our community is, has a big, beautiful Muslim population. And just to see that representation for them also was incredible. I don't know that we've ever had that before, to be honest with you. That wasn't perhaps an extra or background character. So that was really fun. But I love the timing of using this Ozempic joke, this weight loss thing, but also kind of help as an aid to helping folks make it through Ramadan. It was just, yeah, I don't have really any notes for it. 10 out of 10 for me.
Thomas, it reminded me a lot of season 39 when they did E-meth, and it was right at the kind of the intersection of vaping and e-cigarettes really catching on, and the end of Breaking Bad kind of having meth in the headlines.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was interesting when you do these sort of medical. Obviously, E-meth isn't medical, but it or even when they had the medicine for Taylor Swift. I believe that was also 39. That might have been for season 40, actually. But what do you think about kind of taking something from the headlines and turning it into sort of a medicine commercial or something like that?
Yeah, no, I like those medical commercials. The Rock was in a really good one as well when he hosted. It was erectile dysfunction one. I thought that took some really funny turns. I really thought this was a creative premise for this sketch. I didn't feel like they cashed in on that premise. I felt like there was something weird about the pacing. Felt a little rushed to me. I think they just assumed that we all know how Ozempic works. We're all in on, like, it's almost like they started the sketch at like 75% of where probably 75% like past where maybe they should have started. Maybe it's because I don't know how Ozempic works. I think it's an appetite suppressant or something like that. I don't know. But it seemed like they maybe rushed what happened in the sketch a little bit more. There was a lot of explaining and not like showing for me in a way. So, but the premise was really creative, and I felt a little let down by the end of the sketch because I felt like the execution wasn't as clever as the premise could have lent itself to be.
Ozempic it was initially used to help folks with type 2 diabetes, but now it's been shown to help aid with weight loss. So I I know about it. It's everywhere on my feed. Maybe
Mhm.
perhaps I'm a woman and things like that are targeted
Yeah.
mostly to women. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was funny. I can't get away from Ozempic. Now there's that new thing called oat Zempic, where some sort of oat smoothie or drink is the equivalent to I don't know anymore. I just
Oh my
I
god.
just let
Like
me eat my burger in peace and, roll.
yeah, like, I know what Ozempic's supposed to do, like, I got the joke, but it almost just seemed like just like the execution, just something about it felt very rushed to me. It's like, "Okay, you understand the premise, right? Okay, cool." And then, like, the sketch just washed over me, and then that was that.
Do you guys think? And we can answer quickly. Are we hitting Ozempic overload? Is it becoming too low hanging fruit?
Mm. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else SNL specifically has done regarding Ozempic. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Maybe there is something there, but I think to have
They've
this.
def- they've definitely worked it into punchlines throughout the last year or
Yeah.
so.
I mean, yeah, I think this is like if this is like the finale of it, I'm okay.
I
If
think
yeah.
Yeah,
I think anything is worthy of parody and a joke if you find the right angle. So I think if they find the right angle for this, they can probably make more. Shoot, there was a Forrest Gump sketch
that's
pretty in the Shane Gillis episode that they found an angle like Bill Hader used to do Vincent Price sketches. That was Vincent Price was a person from the 50s, but he found like a funny angle for it. So I think it's not off
no.
limits. They just have to find the right angle for it.
Yeah, I think the difference there is when Bill Hader was doing Vincent Price sketches, there weren't Vincent Price jokes on every
Yeah,
award show and every late
yeah.
night show. Like I think that's where maybe outside of SNL, like we might be hitting a point where it's becoming a little like, and it's all cyclical. So I'm sure eventually the next thing will come up and the late night will hit that, and the only people
Mhm.
making Ozempic jokes will be your coworker who's always late on things. It's the way it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Speaking of late on things, we're getting late into this episode. We're moving right along. We have Travis Scott auto tuning his way through his song. Whoops, said that. And we're right on to Weekend Update. It's been, I feel, a weird year for Weekend Update. We've had a couple episodes where it's like one correspondent. We had a no correspondent episode. This felt like a really traditional edition of Weekend Update, and we get Piper Dunster, a TikToker who has to kind of apologize for either jumping on trends or just making jokes when you're not supposed to. Which I do think we all agreed. I think during the pandemic to stop speaking about celebrities if we don't know what was going on, and then we all turned around and decided to do it anyway with every single celebrity. And then we get the widow of Flacco, who I am not. I'm a Northeasterner, but I'm not a New Yorker, so that reference was a little over my head. But we got Sarah Sherman in that role. Thomas, how'd you feel about either or both of the Weekend Update correspondents?
Yeah, with Chloe's, with her TikTok character, I appreciated that she tried something different with an update piece where it was like cutting back and forth with between like a pre-tape stuff and then her at the desk live. There was nothing to that character, and like she didn't really build a character necessarily. I mean, the writing was okay. I thought it was like some funny escalation and everything, but as far as an update character, uh, there was nothing really there. But I appreciate the effort because it felt like something different on the update desk. With Sarah's, another way to do a Jost roast, which is okay. I mean, I'm starting to see some diminishing returns a little bit with the Jost roast stuff, but she's finding new ways to do it. And this wasn't as heavy. This was more like half of it was Jost roast, half of it was commenting on this story. Same Haskell. Like, of course, I'm in New Mexico, so it's a whole different world out there in on the East Coast. But I had no idea about this story. But yeah, I thought both of them were just okay.
Victoria, how'd you feel about Weekend Update?
Okay is the word I'd use here. I mean, of course, I love the jokes they did. The characters kind of fell flat for me. I'm also just not a bird person, so I tried my best. Um,
I think if
I
you're
do.
not a bird person, you might like this even more. It felt like
That might be the first time that's ever been used as a reason so he didn't like an SNL
just
sketch. I'm not really a bird person.
so,
I just,
you know.
I just, I like Big Bird. No, but I think I will say too, when SNL does TikTok influencers, they tend to do the teenage dancers or whatever on TikTok, and I don't think majority of TikTokers get those on their For You pages, but I think the character that Chloe is for I think they're trying to reach young millennials, older Gen Zers here with this one, but that's a character that I see a lot. That person is someone I see a lot floating around on, either For You pages or stitches or whatever it is that they're doing on the tic-tac-toe. But yeah, I mean, I love Chloe Trost. I love seeing her as much as I can. So I'll take it for tonight. That was a great, a great fit for her, like outfit. I'm sorry, great outfit for her and hair. But yeah, I don't have much to say. I did write a weekend update joke. Do you want to hear it?
Of course we do.
Okay. I was expecting Colin Jost to do it, but he did a different take on it. So this is my take on it. Are you ready? Say yes.
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 Okay. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill to restrict minors under 14 from using social media. No one was more upset about this than Florida Representative Matt Gaetz.
I like it.
I have an update joke too, guys.
Well, this is the open mic of
Okay.
SNN show, so let's do it.
Okay, I'm Michael Che. Hey, women's basketball is boring. Am I right, guys?
He did it.
Yeah, he needs to.
That was the joke.
That's pretty much the joke. Like every week, at least once from Che. Seems like they're mailing it in. I love them, but it seems like they're just tired.
I do think we've gone through so many ebbs and flows with them because we've had this iteration of Weekend Update for so long. But you're right. It does feel like they're just playing out the string, and that they are either playing it out for this year or they're playing it out so that it's not a new desk for SNL 50. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it just feels like there was a minute there where the rest of the show was struggling and Weekend Update was so good. And they were so good in that role.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of flipped. Like SNL's got its groove back with live sketches, and Weekend Update just doesn't hit the same, And we'll see how everything shakes out. Obviously, we're heading for uh, a shakeup at that desk sooner rather than later. Both of them just been there so long. There's been so many rumors. I think Michael Chase talked about, a number of times being like, yeah, I was ready to leave, and then I didn't. So obviously, that's going to be coming at some point. But the theme of the night, Thomas, of all the weekend updates I've watched, that was one of them.
This certainly was one of them. Yeah,
It was that was weekend update. We move on to the pizza murders. This he should have ordered delivery. I wish I had sunglasses on. I should have. If it wasn't 2:00 in the morning, I would have prepped my props for that. But we get Dismukes as a detective. Ramy, apparently his partner, I assume. Look at that, you got props. Oh my god. But we do have a murder, and we get sort of a one note, one joke sketch, which is Dismukes making the sort of network procedural joke that would lead into the opening credits, the sort of Law and Order joke, or the what was the show that had the Who theme song? One of the CSIs, or Shark? Was that a show? Shark? I don't know, but that was the joke of the sketch, and it plays a few times. Victoria, CSI Miami also did it. Yes. Victoria, what did you think of this sketch?
That's all.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Thomas, what did you think of the sketch?
I don't know. I don't think this sketch knew what it wanted to be. It was, yeah. Thank you, Victoria. You just took the words right out of my mouth. No, like it had a decent, like a kernel of a good premise right there, but then it was just kind of all over the place with like what the game was and what the joke was, and uh if this Mukes is gonna be the weird one, like have him be the weird one, but then you have Ramy like making a joke, and then but then he makes a joke, but if they're gonna fight about the joke, then have them fight about the joke, but then they like passed on that as well. So they're almost like two avenues that I thought they were going down. Then they passed on those avenues, and then they settled for Andrew's character trying to make Sarah's character laugh, which was honestly like maybe the best part, was Sarah like holding in like genuine laughter, it seemed like, because she kind of knew it was coming and something, it was making her laugh. But it just seemed like there were a couple false starts in this sketch, and they really didn't know what they wanted to do with the premise.
Yeah, and I think it's, in the chat, CSI Miami, David Caruso, that's the parody right there. Not the first time anybody has parodied that. Not the first time, SNL has parodied the make the joke, throw the sunglasses on, cue the music. But I think that I would have liked to see them discover or play with the idea of Dismukes trying to discover the joke that's going to make it work.
Right.
Like, I think him repeating the joke had a very limited runtime, and it was a very limited runtime sketch. I would have liked to see him kind of moving around, him trying to find, what pun, what joke is going to work, because you had kind of that sandbox of pizza puns to work with. And Thomas, I agree with everything you said, though, that they went in two different directions. Like, okay, Ramy made the joke, Dismukes gets pissed about it. Like, okay, I could have seen that playing out as well. But then they move on from that way too quickly. We get Sarah Sherman as playing a widow again, twice in the night. And then this really big lead up to like, oh no, she'd want to hear the joke. Dismukes kind of really building the joke, and then we get the final payoff that was his last day. He was fired. Yeah, that was a sketch.
Haskell, you read my mind. Like when the sketch started, I was thinking to myself, I wonder what different jokes that Dismukes is gonna make. Like I want to see where this is gonna go, and it was just the same thing. And you totally, we were on the same page with that, Haskell.
Exactly, yeah. And just to correct the chat, somebody told me in the chat there was no show named Shark. James Woods was in Shark. It was a show. We're moving on. We get to our last sketch of the night. We get the Jonah Hughes Band at an NPR Tiny Desk concert, and he is risen. Now, I'm not talking about Easter. I'm talking about Bo and Yang finally showing up on this episode. That was kind of I had that all, that was in my headlines. That was in my hot take. That like, wow, huge lack of Bowen in this episode till you get to this last sketch. He's playing an intern who is like really full of himself, really feeling like he's doing everything, and is going to be the next big thing, and interrupting the Tiny Desk concert. Victoria, how do you feel about the Jonah Hughes Band?
I like the game of I love the POV because I just watched Big Sean's Tiny Desk stuff earlier this week, but I love the idea of someone being next to them working, being like, all right, well, they're filming again, or whatever it is, and being annoyed by that. But other than that, I didn't quite get it. You know what I mean? I think it was a lot trying to happen at once. Then, I mean, I love Bo and Yanning. I'm glad I got to see him, but him coming out with the microphone at the end, there's a jingle. I was just like, there's too much going on. But I do love the idea and the game of they're doing these tiny desks. I would have loved maybe if they like zoomed out and people are actually trying to work. I don't know. I think it could have gone a little differently. Not my favorite of the night, but I always love a good Bowen appearance. So I'll take what I can get there.
Yeah, also kind of like recognizable for a last sketch of the night, which we had, as SNL fans always think of 10-1. We think of being weird, but to throw NPR in there, something recognizable like the Tiny Desk concerts, which kind of go viral. Thomas, how'd you feel about it?
I thought this was a bit of a mess, honestly. This sketch to me was like all over the place. It was there was like 3 different kind of jokes that happened and they ended up landing on one, and there was no like counterbalance like from Bowen's character to the band. So like the band is kind of weird, but then also Bowen is, and I think I was talking about how the game show sketch had kind of that dynamic, but they handled it really delicately. This one, no. So it was like the band like so it's a band that's usually plays like has synths and real instruments, but then they're not playing real instruments. Okay, that was kind of a funny angle, but then they move off of that. The lead singer's a little eccentric, but then Bowen is a weird one too. And then the lead singer at the end is like, "Oh, I love your podcast." Like, I don't think that was necessary. Like, I want something to balance out Bowen being the weird one in the office. I don't need the band to be the weird band as well. Like, it just felt very, very messy. I didn't know which way to look or what was going on. It was almost like I'm surprised like this made air, I guess, and it felt a little haphazard to me.
Yeah, and talking about making it making air, we always know late in the night things get cut down, so this might be why this happened. I have a huge bone to pick with this sketch. How are you gonna put Chloe Trost in a musical sketch and not have her sing? Like, Chloe
Barely.
Trost's couple of musical sketches this year have been my favorite sketches of the season. She is, when she came in early in the year and was just belting out tunes. Like, it was my favorite thing of the year. Like, I've wanted to see more Chloe Trost all season long. I've been become such a huge fan. And then I look in it and I'm like, oh, great. Like, they're doing a musical sketch with Chloe Trost. It's gonna be great. And I like we'll have Mike Murray time it up, probably like a second and a half of singing from her. Huge misstep in my opinion. And it just played to this sketch being a little bit of a mess. Um, Before we move on, Victoria, Thomas, anything else to add about the sketches that we saw? And I'll come back
No.
for your fun. No. All right. Well, some exciting stuff going on tonight. We did have boots on the ground in New York tonight. we did have boots on the ground in 30 Rock tonight. We got some insider information. We had some cut sketches tonight. I will be going through those really quickly for you guys before we kind of wrap up our thoughts on the episode. So this is what was cut from the Ramy Youssef episode. These are the reports that we got. So first we got Barkfinity Scientist. Ramy in a lab shows off human duplication, clicking around to see Charles Barkley, Keenan, doing a DraftKings ad, Subway ad, inside the NBA, college hoop shows, King Charles with Gail King, played by Punky, international commercials with Bowen, etc., like Inside the Beltway, complete with a blooper with the woman handler appearing on screen. Ego, Mikey, Heidi, also a scientist. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm an English teacher, but I'm not the best reader in the world. I don't really know how to make heads or tails of that sketch. I don't know if there's something I'm missing there.
I think it's because Charles Barkley is in so many things that they're cloning Charles Barkley.
Is that the hook? That's what I
That's
thought.
what I gather, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just the joke of that sketch appeared to be, hey, Charles Barkley's everywhere, huh?
Yeah,
Listen,
it sounds like we didn't need to see that sketch.
I want to see Charles Barkley somewhere, and that's hosting SNL again. I think that guy's a riot. Next, we got Space Journey. Molly asks Ramy Molly asks out Ramy day one of a 752-day space journey and is rejected. He ends up dating and marrying Trost, which we saw that. Molly's advances are rejected. Turbulence leading to a kiss, three-way, changing her hair to look like Trost's. She ends up dating JAJ, an alien. So again, they're the joke, looking like they're on a long, multi-year space journey, and Molly asking out Ramy on day one does not seem like the best decision. The next one we have is Dr. Williams. Same character from the Jake Gyllenhaal episode a few seasons ago, but different last name for Punky. Family of Heidi, Ramy, Trost, Marcello, and family therapy. Ego keeps calling Punky, who keeps getting dared to jump off a building. She does. Everyone sings at the end. This is my favorite. I want to go back and have intern Matt write just the explanations of all sketches. I'm just having a blast reading these sketches and trying to figure out what's going on. We then had a film, The Hitman. Ramy Youssef keeps getting calls from Uber Eats, played by Marcello, who keeps saying delivery as he tries to kill JAJ, the next building over. Chloe Fineman was in it as JAJ's date. And from Update, this is something that I really kind of sad got cut. Michael Longfellow and Devin Walker doing a version of Update as new Colin Jost and new Michael Che, except their segments were based off vibes, more vibes than jokes, and on TikTok. I think that's something that we need to see before the end of the year. Michael Longfellow and Devin Walker as new Colin Jost and new Michael Che. I think that would be really fun. That was the cut sketches from the night, and we might hear more from those as the week goes on, and all of that. So that was the Ramy Youssef, Travis Scott episode. Those were our hot takes. I'm going to now ask Thomas and Victoria what their rating out of 10 for tonight's episode was. Victoria, I know you are very high on this episode, so I'm going to go to you first. What is your rating on tonight's episode?
Ooh, I'd give it. Okay, I have to be. Should I be realistic or should I be, based off my high earlier?
Based off your high.
Yeah, what's your hottest
Victoria? Yes, it's vibes right now. Let's do it.
This is not the time. Realistic is Monday night. This is the hot take show.
Okay. Based off my high, it'd be an 8.5. Now that I've sobered up a little bit, I'd give it a 7.
It's pretty decent. All right. Little high.
Like I said, this one was from me. This is for our community. Like to see
going from an 8.5 to a 7. I feel like you were out with Travis Scott when you first watched this episode, and you were coming down to like a shorts in the club. I'm surprised you fell that far. from the beginning
You
of the
know,
episode to now.
it's in it. Well, that 1.5 is because of that NPR sketch, and oh man, what was the one before it or after it?
The pizza murder.
Yeah.
All
What
right.
are you gonna
Well,
do? It's the
hey,
economy. What do you want me to
what
do?
are you gonna do? You should have got delivery. Thomas, what are you thinking for your rating for today's episode?
It was aggressively cookie cutter. So I was gonna give it a 5, but in honor of Victoria and representation, I'm gonna bump it from a 5 to a 5.2. 5.2 out of 10.
Victoria, you mean
It's the best
0.2
I
to
could do. I
Thomas.
love you, Victoria.
Is
It's the best
that
I could do.
all my
Point.
community means to you, Thomas?
Okay,
0.2.
that's a loaded question.
0.2?
5.2.
So we end up with a 7 or 8.5. We're gonna give Victoria the 8.5. Victoria's going with the 8.5. We go with an 8.5 and a 5.2 on this episode. I'm gonna put my mark on it. I'm gonna go with a 7. I think it was a 7 out of 10. I think that was a C episode. I think Thomas referenced the Mendoza line, which in baseball is like, if you can't hit above the Mendoza line, you can't be in the lineup. I think this is a Mendoza line episode for me. A 7. It's a C. It's, if you can't get above this, I don't think it's a worthwhile episode. But I don't think this was not a worthwhile episode. So I'm kind of right there in the middle, if that makes sense. So hey, Thomas, Victoria, thank you so much for on this Easter Eve, Easter morning being here. We have a loaded library and a loaded week ahead here at the Saturday Night Network. If you have not checked out, we have 2 new SNL stories. Christine Ebersol and I got to interview Bobby Moynihan. Please make sure you go check those out. For the week ahead, don't worry if you hated this episode. John will be back on Monday for the roundtable to discuss this episode even further. And the By the Numbers this Wednesday, John will be joining Mike Murray. They will be talking about the numbers and they will be talking about their trip tonight to SNL. That was our boots on the ground. See, I teased that for a reason. They will both be back to talk about that. So it is a busy week. And to our panel, Thomas, I want to thank you so much for making your hot take show debut with me here tonight. It means a lot to me. Anything to plug, and where can the viewers find you?
That was great, Haskell. I feel like we bonded. I feel like we've mended some fences there between us. So I have a couple of podcasts, Pop Culture 5 that I do with my co-host Ramy Dove. We break down 5 essential things in any given pop culture category. For example, last week, WrestleMania is coming up, so we did 5 essential WrestleMania matches. But we're all over the place. We have a potpourri of things. So next week, we are doing 5 essential Nirvana songs. So we go music, movies, TV, wrestling, just all sorts of stuff on Pop Culture 5. And then SNL Hall of Fame. You can find me at SNL Hall of Fame with JD and Matt Ardill. Last week, or actually coming up on Monday, Tracy Morgan is the nominee that we'll be discussing. And then after that, you can hear me and Victoria talk about John Mulaney's candidacy as a writer. We just recorded that. So if you love the chemistry with me and Victoria here, good friend of mine, we will be talking about John Mulaney on SNL Hall of Fame. So catch me on those 2 pods.
That sounds more than 0.2 exciting, if I'm going to be honest. I'll make sure to check that out. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Where can the listeners find you?
You can find me on Instagram here. If you are in the Chicago area, I have big news, everybody. So, as some of you know or may not know, I am a Saturday Night Live scholar at the Second City in Chicago. Our showcase for the Saturday Night Live scholarship is coming up this weekend, April 6th through 8th at the Second City at 8 p.m. It is SNL style, and that is sketch comedy. I hope you can come make it. If you want a link to tickets, please let me know. Please show up, laugh at everything I do so that when they send it to SNL, they're like, wow, everyone laughed for her. No, laugh if it's funny, please. But I'm very excited about it. You can, as Thomas said, I'm also going to be joining him on an episode of.
SNL
Wow,
Hall of Fame.
I know I got really excited. I was saying of SNL Hall of Fame, and then you'll also see me around these parts too. And if you're in Detroit, I might be at the Go Comedy Improv Theater performing as well. You never know.
Make sure to check out Victoria. I have been Andrew Haskell. Check me out, Andrew E. Haskell, on all social media. I'll be at the Rhode Island Comedy Connection on May 26th, and it is my last comedy date before my wife is due. So make sure you get out there, because, I mean, who knows when I'll be out again. I
Yay!
want to thank all of our viewers tonight, especially on this Easter Eve, staying up to talk this episode of SNL with us. Talking about your hot takes in the comment section has been amazing. Have to thank our presenting partner, latenighter.com, of course. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, find us on all social media, find us everywhere where you get your podcasts. This has been the Hot Take Show. Thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful night.
Shukran.